Hello, my name is Aracelis, and I'm your professor in the master program. The course is Phonology. So I just want to have this video as a review of our last topic, which was an introduction on an overview of phonetics and the difference between phoneme and allophone and the syllable structure.
Okay, last class we talked about phonemes and allophones. I'm not gonna go with the explanation of the overview of phonetics because you're supposed to be acquainted with those terms, and I hope that you studied some of those terms for this coming class. Okay, phonemes and allophones. This is, a very good introduction of phonology. The phoneme. A phoneme is the smaller contrastive linguistic unit, which maybe bring about a change of meaning. Is in other words, is what we really hear, perceive. Is the mental unit that we have. It's a story in there. It's ready to go at any moment. It's what we think that we are producing, but it's not always the case. And it's ready in there in our consciousness. Also, they are naturally grouped into packages called syllables. Because when we speak anyway, that I know with the single phonemes, anyway we know that even kids, when they are learning the language for the very first time, they start saying pa, ma, and then that's why we say the single unit, even though when we start speaking we start saying syllables instead. The phonemes in this case, as you can see, I put these slant brackets or these slashes. They can be categorized according to features. They are physical gestures, and then this is the topic that we're gonna touch. Next class. The phonemes are, as I said before, the basic level units that are easily available to speaker consciousnness, while features are more abstract classification and directly accessible to the untrained ear. So that's the purpose at the end of this class. That means you can be aware about phonemes and allophones and what people really produce, and then that you can be very critical about that, and then you start thinking, as a linguist. On the other hand, we have the allophone. The allophone is the variation or the variance of a particular phoneme. A very good analogy of this is when you have a lot of things related to one topic, and then you create a new folder, and in that folder, let's put the name of phoneme, and then inside of that folder you're gonna put everything related to that phoneme. So the variations of that is what is within of that folder. In this case, those variations inside of that folder of phoneme is what we call allophones. It is one of a set of multiple possible spoken sounds used to pronounce a single phoneme. And as you can see, the brackets that I use, not that I'm using, that I'm supposed to use, is the square brackets. Then you have that's one of the first things that you can tell to differentiate phonemes and allophones is the way how you use the brackets. The slant brackets are the phonemes when you use them, and then the square brackets are the allophones. And then we can see this is like the skeleton of that. Every time that you see this, the X is the phoneme, is in slant brackets or slashes, and then the Y is the allophone, is the abbreviation, is in square brackets. A very good example is, you know, that in English the stops, the voices, the stops, they are aspirated at the beginning of words. And then, but that doesn't mean that because they are aspirated at the beginning of words and some of are not aspirated, they are two different sounds. No, they are two different phonemes. They belong to the same phoneme, but the difference is the environment, phonetic environment, that they don't occur in the same environment. And then, for instance, pa is the original one. If you can see the three, they have to share similarities, and you can see the three sounds. They are bilabial stops, and they are voiceless. Since they have some extra features. For instance, we have the aspiration and the pa that happens at the beginning of words, and then we have the pa that happens, you know, after s. Okay, another very good example was how to find phonemes, and then in this case, you know, to check inventories, phonemic inventories. And this is a very hard job for the phonologist or phonetician. So, but for that, there are three different methods that, even though the names are pretty short, they enclose a very hard job in this case. So the three methods are minimal pairs, free variation, and complementary distribution. I'm gonna go by one. In the minimal pairs, it is this a method where you have to find words, two words in this case, minimal pairs. That's why you say pair, that are exactly the same except for the two sounds or segments in question. And then, for instance, it says such a pair of words, or in this case sounds, would constitute a minimal pair. The place can be anywhere in the word, and it is best to find examples in several places: word initially, word medially, word finally, and they have to occur in the same place. So they should have the same environment in order to be categorized as a minimal pair. And then a very good example in here, we can see the word pen, ben, and then you can see that the pa and ba, they both are bilabial, both are stops, but the only difference is in voicing. And you can see pa is voiceless and ba is voiced. If you remember I hope that you remember the screen, the spectrum that I showed you the last class, and that showed the voicing in the different words. And then we have also the triple and treble, and then we can see the same pair of phonemes and the same pair of sounds in word medially. And then we have the last one, rib and rib and rib, and then we can see that word finally. And then when we have things like this, that there are pair of words that they share the same environment, except for the pair of sounds, we can tell that they are minimal pairs. And then we can tell that they are phonemes, different phonemes, because if we mix them, there will be a difference in meaning. And then in this case, we can tell that this is a minimal pair. Minimal pair, in other words, answering the question like to find phonemes. The next one is free variation. Free variation is like a combination of minimal pair and the next method that I'm gonna mention, that is complementary distribution. So, but this depends on the speaker's choice to pronounce a particular sound or the word. So in this case, it is when sometimes a particular phoneme can be pronounced slightly differently without noticeable effect. In this case, we have the word rib. Remember that voiceless stops, they have the option to be aspirated. So if it's a rip, rip, and then we have rip, and then it's the same thing. It doesn't change the meaning of the word at all. And then we can see it's a choice that the speaker has. And then, for example, it says in here that some free variation is just plain free, but some seem to have sociolinguistic implications. And then, for instance, in here is when the speakers, can use either of several distinctive sounds, but don't seem to care very much which one they use. So, for instance, some people say economic, some people say economic, is totally fine. Some people say either, some people say either, some people say neither, some people say neither, some people say student, some people say student, some people say new, some people say new. And then there is a free variation, as the word itself says. The next one is complementary distribution. It's the method that we use the most. Most of our data problems are based on complementary distribution because this enhances, that critical thinking, that analysis, and that's what we want from our students. And here it says, in order to test these methods, we have to look at the phonetic environment. Well, we have to check the phonetic environment in all of them, the minimal per free variation too. And of course, in this one, we really have to pay attention to this, in which those sounds occur. And then, for instance, when we refer that the distribution of the two sounds is complementary, it means the two sounds never occur in the same place. And that's the thing about this. We have the analogy of Superman. We have Superman and Clark Kent. They share similarities. They are both handsome. They both have blue eyes. But we only see Clark Kent in the Daily Planet. We only see Superman in moment of disasters and destroy, where he has to save the planet. So we can tell that we never see these two guys together in the same environments. They always occur in different environments. So this is the perfect analogy to say complementary distribution is we're talking about the same phoneme, but the variations are two allophones that they never occur in the same place. That's the thing. It's like minimal per, and in this case, complementary distribution identifies allophones, while minimal per identifies phonemes. While you're doing this, one of the things that I would like you to learn, or to have a more concrete idea about this, is the difference between underlying representation and surface representation. I did it in this way. When we're talking underlying representation, means the phoneme. It refers to the phoneme. Okay, and then surface representation. Underlying representation refers to the phoneme, sorry. And then the surface representation, it refers to the allophones. It's what we really produce in the real world. In this case, we could say, in the underlying, this is like an iceberg, and then the underlying representation is always the phoneme, and then the surface representation, you will always have the allophones, and then in there you have to specify the phonetic environments and what are the conditions. Some of things that I explained very superficially last class is the symmetry. Is like phonemic inventories of most of the languages. They follow a symmetry. If there are stops, we have some fricative. If we have some bilingual sounds, maybe we have some velar sounds too. It's like it follows that. Columns, rows. We also have markedness. Markedness is a very important topic for this, We have marked and unmarked. Marked means that the sound has an extra feature, but I want you to pay attention to this from this perspective because you really need to be, uh, pro in with binary features and phonological processes. But I would like you to see this marked concepts with complexity, or for instance, marked sounds, they are more complex and less common. Unmarked sounds means that they are is simpler, and then they are very common among all the languages in the world. For instance, we have the S. The S, the coronal sound, that coronal sound that is the voiceless fricative, the voiceless alveolar fricative, first is a sound that occurs in most all languages in the world. However, if we have aspiration for these stops, few languages have them. So in that case, we say that the aspiration is marked, and then the fricative sound S is very common, and then that's unmarked. And that plays a very good role in time of analysis. Um, Naturalness in this case uh, is in this case how some adapt to their environments, and they are phonetically motivated. I'm gonna say more of this with the following example. So we're gonna have a practice about how I want you to do how I want you to report your problems, your data problems instead of, or your data that I gave you. Well, I can see my first error that I have in here is gente. It's not gente. It's gente. In that case, I have to put the age, the symbol age. Well, in this case, I have the Spanish language, which is a Romance language spoken in Panama, Spain, Central and South America. And when I say the word focus, means that I want you to pay attention to those particular sounds, because I'm gonna give you a data with multiple sounds in there, but it's like you don't know from when to start. And then the focus thing is that I just want you to pay attention to those particularly. So in this case, we have this data, and then I want you to pay attention to the nasals. In this case, we have the velar, dental, and the velar nasals. And we have the words junta, nadan, banco, nido, ganga, pinta, neón, venga, gente, fantasma, no, brinco. The first thing that you have to do is, I want you to do is to make columns of words. If you have, for instance, if I say N with the alveolar nasal, put a column with that, and put all the words with N, and then all the words with N, and then you will see. And then when you have that, it's going to be easy for you to see what's happening, what's the phonological process. Then after that, you have to look for commonalities. What do they share? The environment is the same, it's different, or it's surrounded by the same vowels, different vowels, a particular segment, phoneme or allophone, and then this will help you to start predicting about your possible hypothesis. And then, of course, after this, we have the environmental distribution, and then you start saying this happened in this environment, but not in the other one. And then we start thinking about that. Then we have to come back to the concept that I just taught you, that is complementary distribution, same environment, minimal pair. And then we find things like this. And then we have this. So for instance, all the words with N, we have nadan, enreda, ano, ensalada, The natural class is really hard to predict in here. But look at the natural class for the next one. We have the velar. So in this case, we have banco, ganga, benga, brinco. So in the spelling, we know that that's phoneme, but you can see the phoneme pronounced, in this case the allophone, is different, because according to the surroundings, to the phonetic environment, we can see that it happens in front of, of the natural class, of a velar sound. In this case, natural class is the conga, which are both are dorsals or velars. The same happens with the end dental, dende, pinta, agenda, fantasma. So we can see that the N becomes dental when it's in front of the da and ta that are dental too. Because in Spanish, the da and ta are dental. They are not alveolar. And that's a natural class. They are both stops, dentals. When we have this, we can start predicting, we can start, determine if they are complementary distribution, if they are free variation, or if they are minimal pair. Write up your answer in a formal manner following this format. This is the thing. I want you to do like a scratch, start from the paper and scratch paper. Oh, sorry. Sorry. So we have the N. So you can start, doing your hypothesis. Occurs only when followed by velar consonants, kanga, and then you give an example. That's the thing that I want. And then you can put that's the condition number 1. And then N occurs only when followed by dental consonants, anda, like bende, pinta. And then you put examples too, maybe 1 per each. And then the last one is never followed by velars or dentals, but only by vowels like ano or alveolar consonants, ensalada. So if you can see in here, the thing that I want you to pay attention for this is condition. You put the ones that are very specific, you put them first, and then the last one that is very general, then you put elsewhere. That's you put at the very last position, as the last point. And then after this, I want you to write out your answer in a formal manner. With this format, and you start doing things like this, like N, and N are nasal consonants, differing only in point of articulation. They are in complementary distribution, where N and N are allophones of the same phoneme N. Therefore, they could constitute a single phoneme. So this is the thing that I want you to pay attention. This is a format. Maybe all of you would have this. That depends if they are in complementary distribution. What about if they are minimal pairs? So you need to start, being creative. But I would really appreciate this part, that you explain more about these processes. Then we have the formal description. N has 3 allophones, N before velar consonants, and before dental consonants, and elsewhere. And then we have the different ones. And then I want you to do the diagram with the underlying and surface representation with the phoneme and its allophones.